Jay Caspian Kang of the New Yorker is here to talk Stephen A. Smith. Jay, you were able to have a conversation with Stephen A. in the middle of his extended teasing of a political run 2 years before he even has to decide whether he's going to do the running for president that he's teasing. But we wanted to talk about this for weeks now, and it's the perfect time to do it considering you did have some reporting on here. But I want to start with the line from your piece at the New Yorker, which was, I think, the thesis statement for why Stephen A. might be the guy to surprise us here. You wrote, "What's required for 2028 is a combative, attention-grabbing candidate who can punch the Democratic establishment squarely in the face." That's what Stephen A. does. Any sports fans, any people who have listened to our show, of course, are familiar with that. What I'm curious about, though, to start off with is the Trump comparison's been out there, right? And we'll get to, I think, another angle on that later on. But Stephen A. is the establishment in some ways, right? Like, he's a
Oh, for
journalist. The
sure.
dude wrote
Yeah.
for newspapers. So how do you think that would affect him if he ever actually pursued political candidacy and tried to appeal to some of the people who are anti-establishment, given that he works for Disney, right? Like,
Yeah, he
he worked
also
for the
makes
Philadelphia
he
Inquirer.
makes a lot of money.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he's been sort of institutionally part of sports fans' lives for 15 years now, just being constantly on the TV in increasing increments, right? It seems like every year that passes, he's on the air for like 30 more minutes, right? Starting in 2000 and when did I meet him? 2011 is when he like sort of came in the Grantland offices. Um, and then since then, it's been like 14 years of growth for him, where every week he has a new podcast or show, it feels like, or First Take is another half hour. And then he's like shows up on what's the early morning show that they have? Get Up, right? And then he's doing the NBA, right? So yeah, I think he is institution in that way, but I think that what Trump has shown us is that it doesn't really matter, right? Institution and anti-institution is just about posing yourself as anti-institutional. And Stephen A., I think, has done that quite carefully and I think shrewdly over the past 2 weeks. Now, I don't know what the end goal is for him. I mean, honestly, I started this in October tweeting about how he should be president, mostly as a bit, like I thought it was funny because he kept going on these political TV shows. And I did think at the time, I was like, well, why is he on Hannity so much outside of the fact that they're friends, right? Why is he kind of like giving Kamala Harris the business in terms of like her being not great candidate, right? Why is he like sort of telling this uncomfortable truth, I would say, that someone on MSNBC would not say? What is he trying to position himself for? And I guess there are like two options in my mind. The first, I think, is much more reasonable, which is that he wants to expand his playbook beyond sports commentary because he is quite smart and he understands that in the streaming future that sports commentary is going to be much less valued, right? Because there's no linear channel, what everybody sort of puts on at the gym or something like that. And then you see Stephen A. in the background, you turn into these shows. Like, these shows aren't going to exist. It's just going to be discrete apps that you touch that end up streaming the game that you want to see, right? That's how I watch, like, for example, if you watch like a lot of European soccer, never watch a commentary show. You just kind of hit the Paramount Plus thing and the game is on, right?
Yeah.
So he sees that as like, well, what's in there for me? It's probably political commentary, so he's moving that. And the other option that I thought was possible, which I thought was funny, was that maybe he was going to run for president. I don't know. I don't think I started this whole thing, but I did. I want to say I did tweet about it a lot in October.
I mean, some political people do probably follow you. Maybe you didn't start it with him, but you started it with them, and then they got in his ear. You never know.
Yeah, or maybe an agency or something like that.
There you go.
But I kind of doubt it. I'm very not influential.
Jay, how real do you think this is? Like, is this going to be like when Hulk Hogan was saying that he was going to run for president in the 1990s? Or like, is this like, could he be in a primary? Like, do we think that, or do we think this is something to just enhance his brand?
I think right now it might be the latter. I mean, the way that he puts it, I think we can take somewhat seriously, which is just like, he says, if people were to say that I should do it, then I would do it, but I don't want to do it, which is what everyone who to be fair, that's what everyone says, right? Like nobody says I'm gonna run. They all just say, well, if somebody wanted me to run, I would run. The only people who are like, oh me, I'm gonna run are people who have no national profile at the time, like somebody like, I don't know, Seth Moulton or Pete Buttigieg when he started his campaign, right? He was kind of like, I'm running for president. Andrew Yang, right? These are people who are like, I am running for president. Everyone else is like, I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
The country needs me. Yeah.
Twist my arm.
If I am called to serve this great country, then I will. But I think that if polls start to show that people prefer him or that they like him, if he's like polling at decent numbers, and I think that probably some people who will start really thinking about it as a quote outsider candidate. And the thing about him is that I think that there are a lot of people in the party. I don't know if I'm somewhat agnostic about whether I agree with him or not, but who want basically somebody who has a very centrist positions. And as we all know, I mean, as people who have watched sports TV for most of our lives and have had Stephen A. know his political stance, I legitimately thought he was Republican until he started talking about this. I was like, isn't he a Republican? Yeah. So that was my in the end, I was just like, well, if they want to run like a guy who kind of profiles as a Republican, then this is a perfect person for them, right? In a lot of ways. So yeah, that was I don't know. That's like the evolution of my somewhat harebrained thinking about all this. Yeah.
So the Washington Post ran a feature on what everyone else, not everyone, others are saying about Smith's candidacy. And they got a quote from Will Cain that we pulled out and wrote up for the website that was pretty blunt. Basically, like he would be, mistaken for somebody that, had the issue knowledge to actually run. And the Donald Trump comparisons start and end with them both being famous dudes. And you wrote, Smith centrism will be not an eclectic collection of policy choices, but a narrative appeal to normalcy. Where do you think the truth? That's what you wrote, but do you think there's anything that to Kane's point that he doesn't reach the bare minimum threshold of when he gets up on a debate stage? Yes, he's great at talking, but there has to be something there to speak to as far as what you believe. And we're debating what side of the aisle he even is on. Like, how does that affect him?
Like, if you ask him right now, how should we deal with Ukraine, right? I don't think that he could give us a detailed answer in this moment, right? But I would say that as this gets more serious, I think the one thing that we can say about Stephen A. Smith is that he's a very hard worker in a lot of ways, right? And that is evidenced by his journalism career, where he starts out. And I think that this is the type of narrative he should tell because he's told it on air. And every time he tells it, despite not wanting to get all into it, I get kind of pumped up by him telling his story. He's like, I started out I'm from North Carolina, so I'm somewhat familiar with these. I started out the Winston-Salem paper covering high school sports. And from there, I went on to be the high school columnist. And then I went to the Philadelphia Inquirer. I was the beat reporter. And then I became the first Black columnist in the history of Philadelphia. And then I came on ESPN. He just tells this whole thing. And he really worked his way up from the bottom of journalism, right? All the way to what he is right now. I don't know how much money he makes, but he makes with his new contract, I'm sure he makes more money than I do, so and he's basically the central character of sports commentary now. I don't think there's any debate about it, right? He is the guy around which the entire commentary world spins. And I think that given that background, that he would probably be able to figure out how to talk about these things in a way, and that maybe he would have gaffes from time to time, like when he doesn't remember that Hunter Henry is on the New England Patriots and not the Chargers, right? That was one of the mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters given the precedent that we have right now for knowing shit, right? People don't need to know stuff, right? They just kind of need to position themselves as oh, well, the other people don't know anything and they're wrong and stupid and evil. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the barrier to entry is low for sure, but I think too, it's interesting to me because the reason I lean maybe where you are, that he'll figure it out, is he says he doesn't know about anything.
Yeah.
All the time. He'll right. Just say I don't know what the hell's going on in Gaza, whatever, So, and so great. He'll probably, if he ever took this seriously, he'll just get there, or at least try to and have something to say about everything, if not be, you know, the thought leader on the world stage of every single topic. But it's the Will Kane
Yeah.
thing just got me. I was
Well,
like,
I don't
damn,
know.
okay.
Yeah.
Thought they
Well,
were buddies. They go on each other's stuff all the time. Okay, we got some media shots being taken here.
do you think? Oh yeah, yeah. Will Kane was supposed to be. I think he was primed to be like the replacement for Skip for a little bit, right? Or that seemed like how they were positioning him. And then I probably smartly went over to Fox News, but I don't know. I haven't heard Will Kane just exhibit much great knowledge about stuff either, I guess, right?
I saw him ask Shaq about what he thought about America at the Super Bowl. That's what Will Kane's been up to.
they're entertainers, right? Like that's what they're there for. And I don't know. I guess to answer, I don't think I really answered the question that you're asking, but I think that he will get there. I agree with you. Like the best part of did you see him on Pod Save America with Tommy Vader? The funniest part that he did in all of that was he was like, it is an embarrassment that I am being considered to be president of the United States. I just started laughing, you know, and it was like, yeah, I think he's very well aware that he doesn't understand all this stuff now, and he'll just be honest about it. I think a lot of American people would actually appreciate that because I don't know, do we really assume that our politicians know much about anything? Like do we really? You know, we elected a new congressperson for our district here in the East Bay, and I was like, I don't know, you know, like I don't actually know what they think about anything, and kind of don't think they might have thought. Maybe in 2 years they'll know, you know, but right now they just got to Congress, so I don't know. Yeah.
Well, kind of to that point, I think a big turning point just in American politics and in all this discourse was the Joe Biden debate. And that was something that you referenced multiple times in your column. And that was something Stephen A. Smith was ahead of the curve on. And he wasn't somebody just, you know, calling Joe Biden old from the right and, you know, doing political theater. I mean, maybe he was doing some political theater, but he was ahead of the curve on Joe Biden is no longer fit to serve. And then when that played out in the fashion that it did, like, that seems like that is something he has here that's positioned him in all of this, as he can say, I'm a truth teller. It doesn't matter to me what side I'm on. I'm willing to call it both ways.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, I think that's sort of my general theory of the last 4 years is like, who gets to appoint themselves truth tellers, and is that its own political ideology? So if you have somebody like Joe Rogan, for example, right, he has appointed himself the truth teller, and it turns out that a whole bunch of Americans agree with him that he's the truth teller. Like, he's not going to take any type of political advocacy or any type of political line. He'll talk to Bernie Sanders. He'll talk to people who think that ivermectin cures cancer, and he'll talk to people who think that the pyramids were giant Tesla power plants, and he'll talk to Donald Trump, right? And he'll do all of that, and he'll talk to UFC fighters, whatever. And he'll do that out of a sense of curiosity about the world. And at some point he arrives about, okay, this is me unfiltered. This is what the truth I think. And actually all these other people are lying to you, right? Because their brains are too clouded by ideology and partisanship. That's its own ideology at this point. It's quite powerful in America right now because people don't trust the media. People don't trust institutions. They don't trust politicians. And Stephen A. is very good at that, right? Even though, as Brendon pointed out, he is the establishment, right? But his instincts and figuring out where to step away from that stuff, very good, right? The people who could really call out what we all kind of saw, let's be honest, with Joe Biden, right? When he's like standing on a stage, doesn't know where he is, and everyone's like, oh, that's like video editing or something. The people who stood up and were like, what the fuck? And those people ended up being right. And a lot of them, you know, have really strengthened their hold on discourse in that way. You know, it's not just Stephen A. It's people like Ezra Klein, people who are very early on this. You know, they were able to tell that truth and they benefited from it. So I don't know, but Stephen A. I think can do that. And his instincts for that, I would think are pretty good, right? Compared to at least your average sports pundit, right? Who are mostly wrong about a lot of stuff. Yeah. I mean, I was a sports pundit for a while. I was wrong about everything, you know, like it was unbelievable. I was like, I went back, I was like, it's like, I'm like batting 300, year. It's like I'm not even 50-50. It's like most of my takes are wrong. So yeah, it's hard.
So you kind of position, I guess, what maybe we can call like that truth telling as a platform, as one winning strategy that you could see in a Democratic primary in 2028. The other one you bring up is like the Bernie lane, the anti-oligarchy.
Right.
I mean, the dude's touring the middle of the country at age 86 or whatever he even is, doing this right now, and obviously has popularity for it, and I think has his own version of truth telling, which is like, who are the bad guys, right? What do you envision somebody taking the Smith lane would have to actually do? Like, can that, which one wins out, I guess?
Well, it just depends who the person is that comes from the other lane, right? Because it can't be Bernie. And I think one of my frustrations with Bernie Sanders is that he hasn't really appointed somebody to be his successor. And that I think that that's led to some clogging up of that part of the party, that people would say, oh, well, it's just AOC. And it's like, is it really, and I wonder with Bernie, and I maybe he'll continue to do it, but if he had decided, I think it's great that he's going on this oligarchy tour. I think it's good that he's like whipping up his base. I think it's really good that he's calling things out that need to be called out, right? Today we had the news that Jeff Bezos apparently is taking over the editorial page of the Washington Post and turning into like a referendum on free markets or something like that. There's like, all right,
there's
cool.
Not enough of that, so I'm really glad you're putting in the good work.
Yeah, I'm just like, it would be like it was. I read that and I was like, oh man, how much money do I have saved up here? Because maybe all this is over. Maybe all this is over. But so it's good that he's doing that, right? But I wonder, like, why are you still the guy at the center of this, right? Can't you kind of bring someone there with you? It's like karaoke.
Needs a sick opener.
Yeah, or like karaoke where two people go up and sing the song together or something. Like, just do a little bit of that so we can see who the next person is. If it's AOC, then that's fine, right? But I imagine, and this is a somewhat unsatisfying answer, that we don't know who that person is right now, and that they will emerge in the next 2 years or so. And then when we look back on it, it will be obvious that that was the person all along. But right now we have no clue who that person is. And if I were to bet, I don't know, it's just so hard because the Democratic Party is so hostile to the left, but that I think that person is probably going to have massive support that might be filtered away in some sort of way, in the same way that I think that the Bernie campaign was in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, at least, right? 2020, you can argue, was a little different. I would argue that, everyone dropping out at the same time, little suspicious, but less debatable than 2016, where I think the party really just revolted against Bernie. But yeah, I don't think we know that person. Now in the Stephen A lane, I think that all he has to do is keep, framing himself as a truth teller and as the ultimate centrist, and somebody who can get along with Sean Hannity and who can talk to, in a way that feels more genuine than, say, Kamala Harris trotting out Liz Cheney on stage. You're like, look, I know, I kind of get why you're doing this. I just don't even believe it. Aside from like the whole Iraq war part of it, like I just don't believe that you're doing this for any other reason than political gain, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, I live in Ohio, which has turned very red, but we still have some pretty talented, I'd say, Democratic politicians, but their platform has basically been to just hope voters don't notice that they're Democrats.
Yeah, like Tim Ryan. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Him and Sherrod Brown. That's their whole campaign, is like, I'm a Democrat, but the fun kind. So
yeah. Tim Ryan's campaign was mostly like, don't you hate China? I was like, all right, whoa. Yes.
Hey, look, do I own a gun? Maybe.
Yeah, that was the best part of the Kamala campaign. It's like, I have a Glock. I was like, do you?
And don't look at the receipt because it was purchased, right when Joe told me I was running.
You worked at Grantland. That's where you were at when Stephen A. Smith told you about the free tacos that you referenced in your story. If this happens in a world where Stephen A. Smith becomes president, like Bill Simmons finally becomes sports czar, right? That's
man.
finally a thing.
Yeah, his dream might come true. Yeah, I think maybe that works. The Stephen A. Cabinet thing, my friend and I were joking about, who he would actually appoint. And yeah, I think that it would probably be a lot of sports people. I don't know. I kind of like I think that at some level though, he would probably be pretty good at deferring a lot of this stuff. But man, yeah, Bill as sports star would be great. We kind of need a sports star at this point, I don't know, like a lot of unresolved issues. Stuff like I feel like sports star would do something like, all right, you don't have to like have all of Joel Embiid's contract weigh you down for this whole period of time. Let's think about the greater good here. I hate the Sixers, but it's like I feel bad for them and their fans. It's like they have Paul George, and it's like I can't even imagine. I'd just check out. I'd be like, I'm done. Maybe in 6 years we'll have like 3 19-year-olds who are promising. Like that's their best case scenario. So I don't know. Some executive decisions from the federal government might be good.
I like how you say there's some serious unresolved issues, and I'm thinking NIL, trans participation, whatever. These real political things, and Joel Embiid,
Joel Embiid. I mean, have you seen that contract?
I have. Yeah, it feels like Obama's honestly auditioning for whatever that position's going to end up being.
I feel like Obama would be a terrible sports star, to be honest. Like I don't think he would be a good sports star. I think that he would. I think that he's too. I just think that it would basically just be like whatever. It would be kind of like the NBA. It would be like whatever LeBron wants is how I'm going to govern, right?
The Saudi league that Maverick Carter's building would just become like a real thing way quicker than it would have otherwise. The overall result of Obama's
is that Maverick Carter's thing is Saudi money? It's like the tennis league, like the infusion of money is from Saudi Arabia.
It sounds very early, but yes, that's where they're going. And they've made it very clear to anyone who will listen that LeBron is 100% not involved. If anyone's asking, don't ask. He's not involved.
That was like, do you remember when Rafa Nadal was doing that stuff for Saudi Arabia, and they were like, he's not actually doing the stuff for Saudi Arabia. And then they went to Rafa Nadal. He's like, Saudi Arabia is, and then they're like, wait, what is going on? He's clearly doing the thing for Saudi Arabia. He just told you he was. But then if you ask, they're like, oh no, it's not a real thing. And you're like, no, it's a real thing. That would be interesting. I remember when Kylian Mbappe was. I don't mean to be like full remember when here, but like when Kylian Mbappe had that proposed Saudi contract, and it was something like $2.3 billion or something, and Giannis did a video being like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
Studying up.
Yeah, I mean, listening to this, I feel like sports are in a great place. I actually don't think we need a czar. I think things just continue to trend how they are, and it feels like no notes. Everybody's just living their best life and making exorbitant money from wherever they can get it. I mean, I think
unless you're a Sixers fan.
Unless you're a Sixers fan, I would also feel like the sports star could enforce relegation in American soccer, which I think is the one thing would be quite beneficial. Right? I know the USL is trying to create a competitor league to the MLS, but that would have it. But I don't know. That stuff is always, people are always starting sports leagues, soccer leagues here in the United States.
We got one of those teams out here. I've gone like twice, and they move their stadium every year, so I'm not sure how that's going. All right. Thank you so much, Jay. This was great. We will keep tabs. I mean, the whole country will keep tabs on this story and Stephen A's potential candidacy that right now is really just a big troll job on all of us to keep paying attention to him. We'll see where that goes. I'm sure you'll continue to cover it at the New Yorker. Ben and I will wrap the show in just one moment. Thank you to Jay.
Thank you.